Hi everyone, Shirtlight here. It's been a while since I did a how to get into style video entry, so here I am to make another one. To kick things off, Mobile Suit Gundam Lost War Chronicles, known in Japanese as機動戦士ガンダム戦記, not to be confused with the PS3 game Mobile Suit Gundam Battlefield Record, is a third-person shooter game made for the PS2. Given how easy it is to emulate, set up and play, it's definitely a game I'd recommend if you want a Gundam shooter that's a bit more on the grounded side. If I recall, Kakarot197 did mention this one in his 5 awesome Gundam games you've probably never played. So at the very least, there's a chance you've heard of it. If you ever played Journey to Jaburo, you'll be happy to know that Lost War Chronicles did improve on the legacy of its predecessor, in more than one way. There's more playable units, the controls are far better implemented, and it definitely feels more fun to play. At least that's how I see it. For those not playing the home game, this is a mech game, and it's definitely on the heavier side. Not too heavy, but the playable units definitely have some weight to them. As stated, you shouldn't have much difficulty running it. I'm using a PCSX2 emulator and probably an older version, but still, should be pretty straightforward. You configure your controls in the controller tab, load in the ISO and go for it. All that, and you have to go into config, video, plugin settings, and set the renderer to OpenGL software. After which, you disable interlacing. With different video plugin settings, the cutscenes tend to flicker. Conveniently enough, the menus are in English for the most part. In the hangar screen, the bottom option has some kanji on it, and that one's Chitsugeki, which means sorry, i.e. your start mission button. Where we want to start off though is the main menu. Your first stop should be the gallery tab, where you select the tutorial option, which will explain the controls for you. Your direction pad controls movement and turning, while the R1 and L1 bumpers can be used for strafing. This can be switched around if need be. Square is your main shooting button, letting you fire your main weapon. If you tap it while your melee is out, you will switch to your main gun. The triangle, meanwhile, is your melee attack button, letting you slash, bash, and in case of the gun tank, shoot your foes. Just like the main attack button, if its designated weapon isn't equipped, the unit will first switch to the weapon, then attack. Blocking is done by holding circle. Most units can block, even if they don't have a shield, but in both cases the shield/blocking stance can only take a few hits for you before it eventually breaks, and knocks you down when it does so. The color of this bar here shows you how much punishment the shield can take before its destruction. With the shield/blocking stance broken, blocking only mitigates the incoming damage. Jumping and boosting upward is obviously done by the cross button. You've got the thruster gauge under the ammo count, so keep an eye on it and you'll be fine. Another thing that drains boost is dashing. If you double tap any directional input, be it on the bumper buttons or the D-pad, you'll dash backward, forward, or sideways. Forward dashes can be held down for longer and used for traversal. The R2 lets you lock onto a target, and if you hold it, it'll try to find one and automatically lock on when it does. As for L2, it lets you access your sub-weapon if you press triangle, tackle if you press cross, and a special charge attack if you press square. Pressing circle while the L2 is held down lets you cycle through 3 different team formations. Arrowhead formation with you in the front, a V-shaped formation with your wingman in the front, and free movement, letting your wingman run freely. Start button lets you pause the game and view the map. When you eventually get long-range radar, the select button switches between your standard radar and your long-range radar. Very useful for larger maps. Additionally, you can hit the option tab and then to the key config to modify the control configuration. Do enable autosave on the way if you want to. Here you can disable reverse axes and control vibration, as well as select between 3 control layout configurations. In the configs A and B, the right and left bumpers control strafing, akin to the Armored Core games, while config C lets you use the 2 buttons for turning instead. This moves the strafing/turning inputs that the bumper buttons don't do over to their respective direction inputs on the D-pad. The second major difference between the configs is what the analog sticks control. In the A config, the right analog stick switches between lock-on targets, with R3 being your token zoom button. The left stick here helps you make smaller adjustments to your camera, while the L3 lets you pan out your camera around your mobile suit, which while not as useful is still a neat addition. On the B and C configs, these are switched around, with the right stick being the camera panning one and the left one switching the lock-on targets. As such, I personally prefer the latter two. You go with whatever you're comfortable with the most. There's also some tidbits you might find useful later on. If you tap forward, backward, and hold triangle, you will melee attack directly downward. Smaller targets, like tanks, can be killed by stepping onto them. If you zigzag while firing the camper's shotgun, it will shoot slightly faster. You can swap between melee and ranged while blocking, though it interrupts the block. And lastly, if you want to land softly while attacking, strafe and use a non-automatic sub-weapon before you land, which can come in handy with the right timing. The best place to test what controls and whatnot work best for you, as well as just how the game plays, is on the 2P combat drill stage on the extra tab, since there's no time limit, so test away. Now, when you're picking your mobile suit, either in the hangar, co-op, or the versus modes, you'll be treated to this JoJo stand-looking stat graph, which may initially be harder to read, but it's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. On the left side of it, there's the mobile suit's armor and thruster stats, the power of both its sub-weapons and its charge attacks. That's why the Zamel and Gundam have the stats so comically high. And lastly, the mobility. On the right side, there's two stats tied to the unit's primary weapon. Skill refers to reload speed, while power is self-explanatory. See, nothing too complex. When playing the main story mode, you're given a different selection screen when compared to the other modes, taking the appearance of a hangar. Nothing really changes here per se, although you can also set the units for your two wingmen. Selecting a wingman and tapping square disables them, should you wish to sortie alone or only with one of them by your side. Similarly to other unit selection screens in the game, if you hold L2 and R2 at the same time while selecting a unit, it will sortie in its alternative colors. The inputs have to be held when you're finalizing the selection, i.e. picking the unit's primary weapon. If you did it right, a new type flash sound effect will briefly play. Some of these are just generic recolors, such as the one seen on the Ifrit Kai, the Zagak and the Camphor, but others are either character custom variants or callback to other units, such as the White Dingo GM, the top custom Zaku 1 commander type, the GM sniper colors on the GM ground, the new Gundam colors on the Alex, the BD3 colors for the BD1, Char's Gundam colors, or the standard Gilgud colors for the Gilgud ground type. The units that have the star icon on them are unique units that can only be assigned to your squad formation once, which should be fairly straightforward. This labeling may get a bit arbitrary, but it somewhat works. One entertaining detail this game has is that if you sortie in a ground-type Zaku on the Federation side, the Zeon troops will remain neutral to you as long as you don't attack or lock on. Alright, so let's get into the game modes this game has to offer. Selecting the mission option in the menu lets you access the game's mission mode. You get 6 total save slots, and it lets you pick between Zeon and the Fedis, and to an extent, it bears some similarities to the Tactics battle mode of Journey to Jaburo, albeit with far more polish. More playable mobile suits, and you can now get up to 2 computer-controlled wingmen flanking you on your missions. On the Federation side, you play as Matt Healy, alongside Anish Rothman and Larry Radley, while on the Zeon side you play as Ken Biederstadt, while your wingmen are Jake Gus and Garsky Zenobio. Each of the two factions get 14 stages, although a large chunk of them is simply the same mission from the opposite side. Not that it would make them any less fun. Playing this mode, clearing levels, doing well and running sorties with specific units a set amount of times gets you new mobile suits to play with. Although I will not blame you if you were to import a save instead. You don't get much in terms of story in question, although the manga based on the game, Gundam Lost War Chronicles, does somewhat make more of a story out of it, and its further adaptations in G-Generation Spirits, Genesis, as well as the PS3 Gundam Side Stories game do so as well, albeit with some alterations and truncations to the story. One downside here is that some stages have less straightforward objectives, which the game does tell you about, albeit not in English. Fortunately, the mission briefings themselves do come with nice little briefing animations, so they're not too hard to figure out. Although the mission where you have to clear out enemies at the California base and destroy the cockpit of the Zanzibar-class ships on the Federation side may not be as clear in terms of instructions for an EN speaker. In this game, you can also play one of the 3 versus modes. These can be played against another player or against the computer, save for the 2-player combat drill, whose objective is to either wipe out the enemy team or destroy their infrastructure on the opposing half of the map. As stated beforehand, this is a good spot to get your bearings. It is worth noting that you will be playing as the Gundam ground type with a 100mm machine gun, and the same will be the case for your 2 allies and your foes. You get points for destroying pieces of the enemy base, as well as the enemies themselves. Once you hit a point threshold or wipe out the enemy team, you win. As for the other versus modes, there's the 3v3 team versus mode, the team versus with a handicap, which means there's a 200-point cap to the point value of your team, and a standard one-on-one versus mode. The variety of units that you can use depends entirely on whether you have them unlocked in the game's mission mode. Oh yeah, and there's 2 co-op stages too. One attack mission on the Zeon side and one defense mission on the Federation side. They're both decently straightforward, and I've had a lot of fun fumbling through them with my buddies. As expected of most PS2 Gundam games, this one also has a gallery mode, letting you replay cutscenes, look at mobile suits, and it even has a music player. That's pretty much it for Lost War Chronicles. Out of the large amount of Gundam third-person shooters, this one's definitely on the more accessible side. So if you're a bit on the fence about whether you want to get into those or not, this is definitely a good starting point. Now with all that said, I'll see you on the next one. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And this is the Shirt Lad, signing out.